Right, gang. So what I'm going to do today is really just go through kind of what we need to be focusing on week one. It's going to take about 10 minutes and it's just going to give you a really good idea about, rather than kind of focusing on all the noise and all the different data, the dashboard, the tools, just so you go away today knowing exactly what are those things that we need to focus on. And that is calories, okay? So it's how much you're eating, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tracking. But what we really want to start understanding is how to build meals and how that's going to fit into your total energy intake, so how much you're eating. And that's what calories is, okay? It's just a purely a form of energy, or that is energy. And once we can understand how much we're eating, we're going to have a better understanding of how we're going to fuel our workouts, how we're going to fuel just day to day, and also how we're going to achieve some sort of fat loss. So in week one, I'm just going to talk about, what we're going to talk about now is about why it's kind of calories first, what kind of the target you should be actually aiming for, how to kind of to access your breakfasts, and also kind of the habits and the tasks that you need to complete this week. So this is the reason why a lot of people kind of get it wrong, and that's the reason why we do the testing here, is that people don't know how much to eat, and this is critical when it comes to, say, fat loss. And the problem with a lot of the calculators is that they're just using estimations. They're not going to take into account, say, diet and exercise history, hormonal profile, muscle mass, and you as an individual, age as well. Okay, and that's the reason why, if you can't come in for testing, even when we use the calculators that we use, they tend to be a little bit more accurate, but it is still a bit of guesswork. Whereas if you can come for testing, at least we know we've got that starting point, which is going to be far more accurate. So even though it is the most important thing, if you haven't got real data, be mindful that we can't be perfect. And this is what kind of this slide shows really. We are going to have that kind of like gap where we're either going to be a little bit under, a little bit over, because we just can't factor in all of these factors. Okay, so hormonal, muscle mass, like I mentioned, and the other thing as well is just the inaccuracy of tracking sometimes. So are we tracking correctly? Even say the way that food is stored, how it's digested, all of these things can impact the actual kind of calorific content of foods as well. So it's never going to be exactly perfect, which I'll explain why it doesn't matter as much in a moment. However, if we can get a very good starting point, we know that the room for error is smaller, and we know that we're far more likely to get those results. So in terms of your actual calorie target, if you've done the Know Your Numbers package, so if you've done the RMR, you've got that RMR. That should be set in your app in Trainerize. It's likewise as well with protein targets. If you've got your fat-free mass, this is how we calculate it. And you don't need to do the calculator on the dashboard, okay? So this is going to give you a really good starting point. If you haven't come in for testing, it's okay. What you can just do is, if you go to the dashboard, okay, the Collective Hub, if you go to Tools, click on Nutrition, fill in your details here, okay, and then what it'll do is it'll spit out your calories, where you can either choose to do a mild weight loss, aggressive weight loss, and it'll also give you a protein. What you then need to do is send that to me, and I can plug it into your Trainerize. One thing I will note, if you are going to say do the aggressive cut, which is cutting calories very low, I wouldn't really recommend this if you're menopausal. Likewise, we won't do this for very long, and you really have to make sure that you focus on building muscle mass, or at least retaining muscle mass with more protein, resistance training, and creatine. So that's how you get your calories. And what we also need to recognize here is, with the aim, or with the target, we're only looking to stay within 10%. So again, if you're looking for 2,000 calories, you're only looking, say, you can have about 1,800. Likewise, if it's going to be 1,600, you've got 160 calories leeway. Either way, that is as well. So if you're hungry, eat a little bit more. If you're not hungry, eat a little bit less. And the reason why we do that is, one, as I mentioned, calorie counting is never perfectly accurate. And also as well, we need to start recognizing more subjective markers, like how you feel, energy levels, fullness, satiety, because that's going to be something we're going to look at long term. So use it as a starting point. Give yourself that flex. Again, if you train quite hard the day before, you may need a little bit more food. Listen to the body and give yourself that little bit more. Okay, so the other reason why we like to track is because people don't really know how much they're actually consuming or how much they're eating. People come in and when for testing, and we have the same conversations. I eat 1,200 calories, I do all this exercise, I'm not losing weight. Sometimes it is the metabolism, but very often it's things that aren't being tracked correctly. So the reason why we actually track is to give you that awareness of what, say, 30 grams of protein might look like, what 50 grams of carbohydrates looks like, what 250 calories actually looks like in real food, because this is what we eat. And once we start understanding this, we can move away from tracking. If we start knowing that half a cup of, say, rice is going to be your 40 grams of carbohydrates, you never need to track away again. It's that half a cup of rice, dry. I know that that is my carb portion. So we build that awareness, and when we've got that awareness, we can start moving away from the tracking. The other thing as well is we're really trying to track literally everything we can, okay, for that first couple of weeks, and that starts giving us a really good understanding of where those calories can rack up. It's that splash of oil, which might be a drizzle. Is it that kind of ketchup? Is the extra sugar, the milk, and the tea, and the coffee? So pop everything in, and again, once we've got that, we've got a really good starting point. One thing you can also do in the dashboard, and I'm jumping from back and forth, click on the track tab, and what this does is it goes through how to track properly. So knowing kind of the things that we need to focus on first, the high calorie things, not so worrying so much about veg, what to do when you go out. There's a few kind of things that it's worth looking at, okay? So do you track raw or cooked? How do you cook? How do you weigh from the jar? On the raw and cooked, it's worth knowing. Whatever you weigh it as, so if you weigh a raw chicken, you need to track it as raw chicken. If you weigh it as cooked, you need to track it as cooked. That's just the most important thing to remember from that. Okay, so that's the reason why we track. Moving on. Okay, so the other thing is building your breakfast. So once you've got an overall totals, just start eating normally, see how close you get to that kind of target, hopefully in 10%. We now need to start thinking about how to balance or build meals. Now, I'll go through how we... let me go back to this, actually. So when it comes to building your meals, what we want to start thinking about is protein, carbohydrates, colour, and also fat. So protein is going to give us, help us with recovery. It helps with lots of other processes in the body. We also know that slightly higher protein as well, it helps with kind of body composition targets or fat loss, because it helps us sustain muscle mass. And the more muscle mass we have, the more calories we burn at rest. And also it acts as that sponge for taking on sugar. So the more muscle we have, we can eat more carbohydrates without it storing as fat. The other thing with protein, it has a high thermic effect. And what that means is that it's going to burn more calories than carbs and fat when eaten. So if you eat 100 calories worth of protein, around about, say, I can't remember, is it 30%? I think it's 30%. 30% thermic effect. So 30 of those calories will be used to digest the protein, whereas compared to fat, it's a lot less. Sugar, it's about kind of like 5%. So that's the reason why we do kind of really push protein first when building the meal. When it comes to carbohydrates, again, we're just looking for that fist size, half a plate, quarter of a plate, sorry. If we can, we're looking for slightly higher fiber varieties, so the actual net carbohydrates is lower, because there's more fiber within the carbohydrates. We don't digest as much. We're then looking for half a plate of veg. We really kind of push this as much as possible, because it's tight, it keeps you full, it's got your pre and probiotics. It's so important for the diet. And then in terms of fat, we need fat for health benefits. A lot of the ladies that join us coming from that, say, if you're 50 and 60, you probably were of the era where fat was bad. We shouldn't demonize it. We need it, but we've got to be careful of the calories, which is why we just have a small serving. Again, if you track this, though, you'll start understanding how much you can actually have. What we then want to start thinking about is the actual quality of the food. So what you've got in one of your guides as well, and it will be on the app as well, we try and kind of focus more on those kind of green foods where possible. So it's going to be protein, it's going to be, say, lower in fat, or if it's going to be a little bit fatty, it'll be oily fish. So that's why we choose those. Carbohydrates, higher fiber. Fruits and veggies, anything really fat, we look for the omega-3s. And if we can get most of our foods on that green list, I promise you'll start getting better results. That doesn't mean you can't have the things in the red. We just want to try and reduce it as much as we can, because you've got to think of that continuum. More greens, some ambers. Ideally, we don't want to have many reds at all. And again, this is just going to lead to better results. So going back to the breakfast, in terms of kind of example breakfasts, what you can do here is just go to the meal bank, pop your calories in. This is already done for me. You'll choose how many meals you want to do, choose your meals, and then you'll be able to start selecting those meals here. The ones that you want to do. And when we actually kind of review them and take them to the actual meal builder, if you click on that, it's going to tell you how to do it. It's going to give you your quantities, so you could be away to go. Again, all of these are focusing on that balanced approach that we're trying to do. So there you go, balance your breakfasts. Okay, so how do you actually log your food? So in Trainerizer, in the quick start guide, jumping back and forth in the... here you've got the quick start guide. In the guide, it does show you how to track your food, so make sure you have a little watch of that. And if you haven't got Trainer Eyes, then you can use, say, something like MyFitnessPal instead. So in Trainer Eyes, watch that video, or that'll show you how to use the barcode scanner. Again, you can search the name, look at the meal bank, but it's really important here that just try and save the meals, because a lot of people here, you will be having the same kind of breakfast. So rather than having to track everything every day, pop in the ingredients, save it, go to your main home screen on Trainer Eyes, click the 3 dots, click save, and then you're not going to have to go back to it, okay, or save its favorites. So when you go back to the yellow plus icon, add meal, add to favorites, and you'll see kind of those meals there. Right, okay, so in terms of tracking, do you actually need to track everything? So you can be mindful, you can use that kind of plate approach. So if we do kind of focus on that, we can still automatically stay within the calories, because if you're having a lot of vegetables, if you're not having many carbohydrates, if you're operating by that, say, hand or say plate method, we can still stay within those targets. The other way to do some sort of food photography, again, you add your post in the group, and that just starts getting you thinking about what you're eating. And just by doing that, you're just going to start making better choices. But from experience, people who do log their food will get better results. And again, it's not because tracking is amazing. It's more about understanding how much you're currently eating. And it gives us far more data about how we can adjust your plan moving forward. Okay, so we've gone through how to balance the meals. And I think that's everything. So the key thing for this week, track your food if possible. Okay, you're aiming for 10%. That's the really big thing for me. Okay, look at your breakfast bank, find those breakfasts that you like, start tracking them, save them in Trainer Eyes, and then you can start kind of adding them as the kind of days in the future as well, and get used to logging everything. Okay, once you do that, it'll become more normal. You'll get that understanding, and I promise you're going to get better results. And then finally, if you've got any questions, make sure you do ask in the group. So I know that I'm going on a bit, so that's your first habit. Crack on with that. Next week, we'll talk about protein in lunches in a bit more detail. And that's everything. So let me know if you've got any questions. Crack on, and looking forward to see some of those breakfasts in the group.